We are starting a new video series that shares the story of the Mennonite Brethren Church through the lives of individuals. In the first of that series, we speak with John Wieler. John, who's in his 90s, has spent nearly 70 years working with refugees around the world and in Canada. As John says, we as Mennonites know what it's like to be a displaced people, and that connection is part of our call to help refugees in need today.
My name is John Wieler. I am retired, and I worked with many agencies, including MCC. My parents came from the Ukraine in the early 20s, along my grandparents, my grandmother, who was a very strong influence on me in terms of understanding what the situation was back there. And if we're going to talk about refugees, well, they were refugees. I grew up in the country in Niverville, and later on, as I went through a number of sort of difficult times, my father was ill, he couldn't work, and I was on the farm, and I wondered what the Lord really wanted of me. Betty and I were engaged, we were going to get married, and then I had an accident, and I was booted off the farm. Doctor says, get off. But what turned out that I went to Winnipeg, and I got a job eventually with an immigration agency, the Canadian Pacific Railroad, or at that time they called this agency the Canada Colonization Association. It was that association which actually helped our people come and resettle in the 20s. And it didn't take very long, and the old gentleman that was in charge of the refugees was a fellow called Dr. Henry Workington. I accompanied him, met the refugees at the train station, and eventually he sent me all over Canada. The trains were old-fashioned. They had the old cars. They were heated. In wintertime, they were awful, full of dirt. The cinders of those old steam engines would come in there, crunch along there. Everybody in there for 3 days, and the mixture of diapers being changed, eau de cologne for shaving, and soup being heated up on the little stove. It was very, very uncomfortable. Okay, what happened then, what followed then, was that the camps were being emptied. They stopped coming. They slowed down. The ships stopped running because they were now putting them on planes. And so our unit there really had to shift focus, which was just fine. And by that time I was married, and we had to make a choice of what to do. I went into business with my father-in-law, ran a chick hatchery for a number of years and a lumber yard. Oh yeah, we had a family, yeah, a wonderful family. We had one little fella was born in Frankfurt, so we had our Frankfurter. Yeah, we had 4 kids. They themselves feel that they were very privileged to have that experience of seeing other people, of seeing the world in a much larger context. We had applied to go to MCC. It was on my heart. So I felt the real burden. And this was partly linked to my grandmother's experience. She was a widow at the time of the Revolution. She would say, had it not been for the help she received from the quote unquote brothers in America, the MCC or the Mennonite efforts, she would not have made it. They were actually starving. So this sort of put a burden on me somehow. I am very conscious that the fact that I asked the Lord to lead me, and He has led me. And once you commit to this sort of thing, you don't back off. We came back home, and we noticed that we had lost a lot of friends. So we had to reestablish ourselves. We found a loving church here at Portage Avenue. I worked in total, it was over 20 years. Best years of my life, in a way, when I was strongest, young. Since retiring, which was in 1996, and especially in the early 2000, I became involved with the sponsoring of additional refugees at Portage Avenue, and we have for all these years continued to sponsor refugees from all over. In summer, we had a disastrous development in Afghanistan. And those people, especially the Christians now, they were a very, very susceptible group, vulnerable, because there's a law that says if you convert, that's a death penalty for them. And so that becomes a very, very important reason why we should help them. I think the very fact that our people, especially as a church, has had that experience in their background, that they understand what it means to be a refugee, what it means to be resettled, what it means to pick up on a new life. But even more so, the terror and the upheavals that was caused by, which was the reason for them leaving their home country, is something that has to be a part of our giving back, you might say, or the reason for a response.